Well, hey, friends, welcome to Q on Q. We're glad you're with us this week. It's good to be back with you all. If you're listening when this first launches, it's been a little while since we've put out some new material here. The 24-25 school year feels like a distant memory. Vacations have all happened. July 4th fireworks and cookouts have passed by. It's been a good summer. It's been a busy summer. And I hadn't intended to take this long of a break, but it's been much needed, and I'm glad to be with you all as we get toward the end here of this Summer Games series and kind of wrap up season 5 before the school year begins. Summer is a familiar season where the days just seem a little bit longer, don't they? The pace slows down just a little bit, and everywhere you look, people are making plans for cookouts and fireworks and family trips and maybe long overdue projects at their houses. Underneath all the excitement and activity that goes on over the summer, it can also bring up an important question. What are we really aiming for? You see, much like fireworks we watch on Independence Day, they really only last a few seconds each. A lot of our energy can be spent chasing moments that feel exciting in the short term but don't leave us with much of a lasting meaning. We stay busy, we keep moving, and yet sometimes we realize we've been firing off effort and attention in 100 different directions without really locking in on what matters the most. That's where today's episode is going to take us, because life in many ways works a lot like the game Battleship. We each have a limited number of moves, a limited amount of energy, and an invisible board that we're trying to navigate. The difference between spinning our wheels and moving toward our purpose often comes down to one thing: aim. So here's the ultimate question that we're going to reflect on for this episode. What are we really aiming for? Today, we're going to explore why this question matters so much, especially in a season like summer when it's so easy to drift, and how making sure you know what and where you're aiming can bring fresh focus, peace, and purpose into your daily life. So, whether you are driving to your last vacation of the summer or sitting on the back porch while you're listening to this, I invite you to lean in as we play a little game of Battleship with your life as the board. In the game of Battleship, it seems like everybody has a certain strategy for how to play. Regardless of whether you put all of your ships together or spread them out, when it comes to your opponent, you can't afford to just fire blindly all game long. Random guesses might get lucky once or twice, but eventually you realize that without some kind of strategy, you're just wasting turns. Well, life works the same way. We live in a world that often confuses movement with progress. I want to say that again. We live in a world that often confuses movement with progress. There's an unspoken pressure to always be doing something, whether it's advancing your career, upgrading your home, curating your image, growing your following. But if we aren't careful, we can find ourselves shooting at targets we never really chose, simply because that's where everyone else seems to be aiming. Culture hands us these ready made goals, but they may have very little to do with what truly brings peace, purpose, or fulfillment. This kind of aimless living is, to be honest, exhausting. You keep firing. You're hoping to hit something meaningful, but without clear purpose, every missed attempt adds to the frustration. You might even begin to question your own abilities. Why does everybody else seem to be making progress? Why do I feel so stuck? The truth is, they may be feeling the same way. We're often surrounded by people who are just as lost in their aim, but really good at hiding it behind busyness or temporary wins. Spiritually, this kind of living can be dangerous too. When we don't take time to pause and ask God what we're supposed to be aiming for, we can easily get caught up chasing things that have little eternal value and take us off the path He's prepared us for. Look at Galatians 1:10. It asks this: Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? That question cuts right to the heart. Who is setting your targets? Are you aiming at God's design for your life or at the expectations placed on you by others or even by yourself? One of the greatest tricks of aimless living is that it keeps you too busy to notice just how out of alignment you really are. We get so focused on the next shot, the next task, the next deadline, that you never step back and evaluate the larger picture. You might even convince yourself that being busy means you must be doing something right, but activity without purpose eventually leaves you empty, like hitting every square of the battleship board without sinking a single ship. You see, that's why recognizing the danger of aimless living is the first critical step. You can't recalibrate your aim if you don't first admit you've been firing without focus. The good news is this: once you see it, you can change it. And that leads us to our next step: learning how to clarify your targets. Yeah, the first step is recognizing when you've been firing aimlessly, but awareness alone isn't enough. Once you realize you've been scattered, for lack of a better term, the natural question becomes this: what exactly should I be aiming for? And this is where real intentional living begins. Not with more activity, but with better clarity. We often underestimate how powerful it is to simply stop and define what truly matters. Life offers countless good targets, but not every good thing is the right thing for you in this season. That's why clarity isn't just about choosing something to aim for, it's about choosing the right thing. Your goals, your dreams, your priorities need to align with your values, your calling, and your current stage of life. A helpful starting point to ask is this: what will still matter 5 years from now? Or even more challenging, what will matter eternally? When you evaluate your targets through a longer lens, you start to filter out the distractions that feel urgent in the moment, but really have no real long term value. And then suddenly, the pressure to keep up with everybody else seems to soften a little bit, and you begin to zero in on what genuinely aligns with your purpose. This is the heart of Matthew 6:33. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. I'm sure many of you have heard that verse before, but I want you to think of it this way. When your aim is centered on God's priorities, things like love, character, relationships, serving others, everything else starts to find its proper place. All these things will be added unto you. God doesn't call us to aim at everything, He calls us to aim at Him, trusting that the rest will follow. This kind of clarity can bring us incredible peace. When you know what you're aiming for, you're less rattled by other people's opinions or shifting circumstances. You stop reacting to every opportunity or crisis as if it's a life or death moment. Instead, you evaluate: does this move me closer to my target? If the answer is no, you feel the freedom to say no without guilt. Of course, clarifying your targets isn't a one time decision. Life changes, seasons shift. What you're called to aim at in your 20s may not be the same as in your 40s or your 60s. That's why it's so important to regularly step back, reflect, pray, and realign. The goal is never perfection, it's steady, intentional focus on what matters most. Even with the clearest targets, life rarely allows us to hit a perfect bullseye every time. We're human beings. We make mistakes, we misjudge, we get distracted. Sometimes we just flat out completely miss the mark. But missing isn't failure, unless we refuse to adjust. The key is learning how to recalibrate when life throws you off course. Think of it this way: in Battleship, missing a shot isn't the end of the game. Consider it to be information learned. Every miss helps narrow down where the ships aren't, which in turn helps you get closer to where they are. And life works that way too, because when things don't go as planned, it's easy to feel like you failed. That job didn't work out, that relationship ended, that dream took longer than expected or just didn't pan out. But more often than not, those misses simply reveal where your focus needs to shift. Sometimes we cling so tightly to our original aim, we miss the new doors God may be opening. This is a lesson I find myself being reminded of over and over, praying for His will, but resisting His redirection. Whew. There is a powerful freedom, my friends, that comes from surrendering your plans while still remaining intentional. You aim and you trust God to guide the path. Adjusting your aim requires humility. It means you're being honest with yourself about what's working and what isn't. And it also means pausing long enough to ask, am I still aiming where I should be? That kind of self awareness takes courage because sometimes it means admitting you've been chasing something for the wrong reasons. But it's not just about correcting big mistakes. A shift in priorities, a reset in your schedule, a renewed commitment to values, these are little course corrections, but when done regularly, they keep your aim true, even as life changes around you. Because without them, even a good target can slowly drift off center. And here's the beautiful part of it all: God isn't waiting for you to hit every target perfectly. He's walking alongside you, gently guiding, redirecting, and strengthening you along the way. Because His grace covers your misses and your attempts. The art of adjusting isn't about missing, it's about staying flexible, being teachable. It's about remaining willing to keep learning. And when you live with that mindset, you're ready for one of the most powerful lessons of all: knowing who you're ultimately aiming to please. I think that one question often reveals more about our direction than anything else. In life, we're constantly pulled by the expectations of others, and without even realizing it, much of what we pursue can be driven by the desire for affirmation, applause, acceptance from others. And while the approval of others can feel good in the moment, in reality, it's a moving target. It's always changing, and we're never fully satisfied. When your aim becomes centered on pleasing people, you'll find yourself constantly readjusting because you're trying to keep up with what others expect. And you might succeed in their eyes for a while, but at what cost? Peace slowly erodes, authenticity fades. You start sacrificing your values for validation. The danger of aiming to please others is that you can lose sight of who you are and what you were created to do. There's a reason Scripture returns to this theme over and over again. That's not to say we disregard others or become selfish, but rather we prioritize living in alignment with God's purpose for us above all else. When our ultimate aim is to honor God, we gain a steadiness that people's shifting opinions can't shake. Pleasing God doesn't mean living under pressure or constant fear of messing up. It's freeing. God's love is constant. His expectations are rooted in grace, not performance. When you aim your life toward honoring Him, whether it's through your work, your relationships, your decisions, you find satisfaction, deep satisfaction, even if the world doesn't always applaud your choices. Because at the core, living with the right aim gives your life integrity. You become the same person in private as you are in public. You don't chase affirmation anymore from every voice around you because you fixed your aim on the only voice that truly matters. And in doing so, you experience a peace that doesn't waver with every missed shot or unexpected turn. So, I've covered a lot today, and I've talked a lot about aim. I want to reframe that thought as I head toward closing out today, but I want to swap out the word aim with the word focus because I think the two really go hand in hand. So I'm going to ask a question I asked earlier, but in a slightly different way. Where is your focus? Where are you giving the best of your time, your energy, your money? Life will always offer us more targets than we can possibly hit. Every day brings opportunities, but it also brings distractions and it brings expectations and noise. And if we're not careful, we can find ourselves busy. Think of it like a never ending loop of firing at targets in Battleship, never hitting where we need to go, and constantly moving boats around. Lots of circles, but never really advancing toward anything meaningful. The true skill isn't in doing more or moving faster. The real art is in aiming well. Where's your focus? Maybe for some of us, this episode is a moment to pause and to ask ourselves, what have I really been aiming for? Whose applause have I been chasing? Have I taken time lately to recalibrate my focus? Those aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. Because an aimless life may stay busy, but it rarely feels full. I want to say that again. An aimless life may stay busy, but it rarely feels full. So here's your challenge this week. I want you to take some time, even 10 to 15 minutes if you have an overly busy schedule. Maybe it's while you're sitting outside. Maybe it's while you're enjoying your morning coffee. Maybe it's on a break. Maybe it's taking a walk. I want you to identify your top 3 aims right now. Not what you think they should be, but what your life is actually aiming at. Because a lot of times we say we're looking at something and going for something, when in reality, our life doesn't reflect that. Do the aims that your life is showing truly reflect what matters most to you? Are those the things that you want to be aiming for? And you have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes simply seeing it written down brings incredible clarity and invites you to make adjustments that could change everything. Because you see, the beauty of grace is that no matter how many shots we've missed, we always get to aim again. God's invitation is never limited to those who have lived perfectly. Instead, He walks with us, steadying our hand, whispering reminders of what matters most. And He's gently calling us back to true north whenever we drift. Every day is another opportunity, my friends, to aim better and to align your priorities with your purpose and your purpose with His. So as you head into this next week, as we gear up for these last days of summer and return to school, take some time to slow down, to breathe. Just as things feel like they're going to get busy again for a lot of us, I want you to ask yourself, where is my aim? Because when your target is clear, your steps become steady. When your steps are steady, your life begins to move in a direction filled with purpose, peace, and a joy that no missed shot can take away. I want to leave you with a thought that is going to carry us into next time. Once we've set our aim, one of the most powerful tools we have to move forward that target is our words. The things we say to ourselves, to others, And even the words we speak in private moments can build, they can heal, they can encourage. But just as easily, they can tear down, they can discourage, and they can divide. Next time will be the final episode of our games series for the summer, and we're going to be diving in to Scrabble. In more than just the game, your words matter. We're going to have a conversation about the incredible power of communication, the weight of our words, and how intentional language can shape the direction of our lives. Well, friends, that is all for this week's Q on Q. As always, I really do appreciate you tuning in this week. We'll see you back here next time when we'll have more for you on Q.